A very good morning to you all. Welcome to today's show. What are we going to talk about in today's show? Normally we discuss about why people should start and run their own businesses. But today I'm forced to focus on a subject matter to do with who is an entrepreneur. Is everyone an entrepreneur? Are entrepreneurs born? Are entrepreneurs made? I've heard a lot of arguments where people have argued and say not everyone is an entrepreneur. I want to disagree with that statement. For me, everyone is and can be an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur and not being an entrepreneur, it's a choice decision. This particular show is aimed mainly at directors and executives for companies who have, in some cases and in most cases, have been very eloquent, some of them very ferocious when it comes to defending why they cannot be entrepreneurs. Let me start by giving a well-known definition of who is an entrepreneur and who is not an entrepreneur. What is entrepreneurship? I don't know if people are going to get their dictionaries, but my understanding of who is an entrepreneur is any other person, any other individual who is prepared to take a risk and set aside an investment to create and run a business for profit. The definition of entrepreneurship is very clear. Anyone who is willing to take a risk, to put aside money or investment amount of money which he or she can use to start and run a business for profit. What is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the actual process of putting aside money, of running a business using investment money for a profit. Now, if you are to follow that particular definition, it does not say taking a risk has got anything to do with whether how one was born or not. So for me, entrepreneurship is purely a choice. Today, I would want to talk about why I am particularly focusing on executives and directors. Entrepreneurship is aimed and has been discovered and has proved to create employment. So many governments, so many countries rely on entrepreneurs to create employment. And I am of the very same view that executives and directors for companies have got to be encouraged and motivated to start and run their own businesses for one pure reason of creating employment. Why have I decided to focus on directors and executives? It is very clear that starting and running a business requires financial resources, requires the skill, talent, and experience. And I have got no doubt that executives and directors do provide us with a very huge pool upon which so many future entrepreneurs can come from. Let me prove to you further why entrepreneurs and future business people should come from executives, CEOs, and directors. One reason I need to quickly point out is I am not saying they've not been entrepreneurs when they are running and serving in other people's companies. I am advocating for a time where they've got to realize that for us to create more employment, we've got to have more entrepreneurs. And these directors and executives do have the multiplier effect that we are seeking. So why are we talking about them in particular? We are saying for the period that they've been employed as executives, for the period that they've been CEOs, they have had adequate time in terms of gaining the required experience, gaining the required exposure that is required for them to live and go out to replicate and reproduce companies that can end up employing more people. Let me demonstrate my example. A number of executives, and some of them do actually sit in corporate boards where investment decisions are made. Some of them actually do chair and run investment committees. And when they sit in these investment committees, they are involved in making key decisions in terms of which particular area, which particular project, which particular other companies that they can put their money and invest in for them to realize further profit. So this idea of saying not everyone is an entrepreneur, yet executives have been sitting on investment committees, have been sitting on boards, which have been making investment decisions in terms of how the companies that they work for can utilize and further invest in other companies, does not suffice. So for me, when you hear an executive giving a reason as to why they cannot get into entrepreneurship, no matter how eloquent and ferocious they are, it is fear that is speaking. Because if they have been celebrating, if they have been regarded as successful members of corporate boards who have successfully invested in other companies, why would they not, as individuals with the resources, start and run companies where they can replicate and reproduce the very same success that they have been collectively benefiting from? I have often argued, and I would want to be proved wrong, that so many executives and so many directors have got the resources, have got the experience, have got the exposure to start and run their own companies, but they are only afraid. They have been working for organizations with clearly laid down policies, manuals that they've been able to follow. And if they've been religiously following these policies and manuals with big corporates, what stops them to get to a point where they would say they've learned enough, they can go out there and reproduce the very same policy manuals, the very same experiences, exposure that they've gained and accumulated over the years to start and run their own companies? I need to be very clear that the main aim of this particular program is to encourage so many people to start and run their own businesses. And for me, executives and CEOs have got all that is required, both in terms of time, determination, exposure, and resources to continue and create companies that can further provide employment for future generations. So we are not going to entertain lame excuses that so many executives have continued to give to say not everyone is an entrepreneur. It requires entrepreneurship skills for an executive to head an organization and get to be involved in new projects, in new investment areas. So that argument of saying not everyone is an entrepreneur does not suffice. Because we've clearly heard right from the beginning that an entrepreneur is any other person, any other individual who is willing to take a risk and use his money or her money to create profit. And so many people have taken risks ever since they were born. So many employees have taken risks on behalf of their employers. I need to be convinced that indeed when executives give an excuse of not being entrepreneurs, they are not referring to the very same definition that I know of who and what is entrepreneurship. Our viewers and subscribers, we urge you to continue watching our shows. We will continue to share with you in terms of entrepreneurship. We will continue inviting seasoned entrepreneurs to share with us how they've walked their journeys in terms of entrepreneurship. So may you continue to subscribe and follow this channel for more interviews.